Hello everyone, and welcome to So Dramatic. Today we're having a look at making a purple dress for a friend of mine. So this dress has a funny story behind it. It started out that she wanted me to make a cloak for a music video that she was doing. And she came over to my studio and saw one of my dolls, this doll actually, and said, "Hey, can you make this dress?" And I said, "Yeah, I can make that dress. Here is the concept drawing for that, and here we go." I started out by creating a mock-up, which is really important to make sure that the fit is correct before cutting into the good fabric. In this case, I only had a limited amount of the top fabric that I needed, so I needed to be really careful how I cut it. It has to be cut on the bias so it will curl around the body correctly. I can also cut pieces that are more correct out of the mock-up pieces once I have them pinned to the correct place. I put in an invisible zipper that I keep around for mock-ups. When I'm done this whole project, I will take it out and throw it back in the drawer and use it for the next one. It doesn't matter if it gets beat up a little bit because I'm just using it for this. Here is the final mock-up with skirt. I think I made the skirt a little long and the mock-up a little bit big so that I could tailor it in when she arrives. Indeed, it was far too large, and now that it's pinned, here you can see that. I can cut out the pieces and take the mock-up apart and fix the lines on here. So that will be happening, and I'll put in a new zipper and we'll see how it goes. Here are the new bodice pieces after taking apart the mock-up and remarking with the French curves. I love the way they look. Now that I know from the measurements it will all work, I can start on the top fabric and begin cutting it out. It's so exciting. The top fabric pieces are cut on the bias, and I love how beautifully it came together. Just look at this. All of the fabric looks beautiful, and I love seeing it laid out like this before adding the zipper in the back. Here is a look at it on the mannequin after seam tape was added. Well, we've had a bit of a hiccup in that trying to make these details out of the very sequined and easily damaged fashion fabric was, I won't say a complete failure, but it illustrated to me why it's probably better to have an accent fabric instead. After a few false starts, I made some detailing additions as per the concept drawing here. Auditioning the detail stripping was super fun, and I highly recommend it. I was able to figure out how I was going to put it all together before sewing anything on here. Before proceeding, the next step was to choose a liner fabric. I chose this because it's beautiful, a soft pink, and has lovely shell designs that I thought Nicole would really like. Here are the two views after sewing it together, and we're going to proceed to the detailing now. Okay, so this is the bodice with the two pieces stitched together before adding the skirt pieces. There you go. You can see it from the side. I haven't put a zipper in yet, but it's coming, and I'm really happy with the way it's working out. One of the things I haven't covered yet is the corselet built into the inside of this. As you can see, the corselet means that the bodice bones form the interior of the dress, and they are on the lining edge. They are placed in the liners so that the fashion fabric or the top fabric can fall down across it and not look like it has any structure at all, when in fact it actually is quite structured. Here are the bones I'm going to use. I sanded them down. After sanding, inserted them into the bodice channels that I made. This is really, really tough. I needed pliers to do it, and it is so frustrating sometimes, especially if you've made the channel just a little bit too tight. I did have some troubles, but I got them all in. So here is the bodice liner after the bones were attached, and it's just so cute, don't you think? Here is a final look at the detailing before getting into the skirt piece adjustments. I'm finished shortening the skirt so it's a reasonable length. I took off this much length. Look at that. And I've got the pins in, and we're ready to attach to the bodice. The top edge of the sheer skirt layer is vastly longer than the bodice waist. So I've attached pins, really brightly colored pins that are different from the regular sewing pins, to the 4 compass points of the top edge of the skirt so that I can attach them to the center front, center back where the zippers are, and the side seams on the bodice. So in this case, because there's no side seam on the side edge at the top of the hip side curve, if you get what I mean. So I put the pins there, and now I'm gathering all along the edge to kind of sort out where everything's going to be, and I'm hand pleating it with my fingers while I do this. And that way, when I sew the final edge, I'll be really, really happy with it. And the pleats are kind of going out from the center, almost like you'd organ pleat or box pleat. And it's just simpler and easier for me to do it this way than throw a gather line in it and gather it up and having to move it around all over the place. I find it maddening and would much rather pleat my skirts. I just like it better that way. It works with my workflow, and it makes me really happy, because hand pleating with fingers is one of my favorite things actually in making this kind of dress. There's dressmakers out there that'll tell you it's a waste of time, but it really doesn't take me any less or more time. You just have to commit to one method or the other. These are the 2 layers pinned together and waiting for a stitch seam. I'm going to make the seam just inside the seam allowance. On this seam edge, the inside liner, I'm going to attach the purple skirt. And then I will couch stitch in a couple of key places to bind the layers together. But mostly it's going to be in 2 layers over each other. Here I am with the purple, which is the top layer of the skirt, but underneath the tulle layer attached to the top fabric of the corselet bodice. This fabric is quite thin and is too sheer and too thin for me to cut it out with scissors, because it's very sheer and it moves too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it out with one of these. I've positioned it very carefully on my cutting mat so that I don't have to move it around too much, because it pulls and it changes where it is. I'm not using any sort of plastic ruler. I just have the paper template, so I need to move slowly and carefully when I'm doing this. I recommend having a steady eye and a lot of patience. And you also have to press firmly, because you won't get a second shot. This edge is where the zipper is going to come down into. Whoops. There we go. And that's one cutout done. Just going to make sure the fold edge is where it's supposed to be. Massage it out. Don't stick yourself with the pins while you're massaging it out. That is bad. Don't do that. And there we are. You can see just how thin that is. That's a sheer fabric. Back over at the sewing machine, I'm switching my regular foot out for a scroll foot because these edges are so thin. I don't want to just sew them together. I want to scroll foot them together. And I'm changing out the thread that I was using, this pinky lavender, for a straight up purple burgundy because it's going to go the best with this. Look at that. Perfect. I've made a test so that I can see how it's going to go. Here, let me get a little bit more light on this. There it is. Perfect. That's going to go together really, really well. And the seam is nice and tidy on the reverse side. Sewing this was a little bit tricky, and of course you always have to be careful with a sheer edge. But I really liked doing this, and it came together well. I think all my edges are better off when they're fully finished. Doing the pleating on the deep purple glittery fabric was super fun. A friend of mine who also does costuming told me about this method years ago of just finger pleating and reducing your time. Make sure you don't have to add a lot of pins, and it's really, really fast and easy. So I've been using this method ever since, and I just love it. And because I'm already adding the pleats in, I can pleat so much fabric and just let it ride after that. It's the most beautiful thing, and I love it because I often have leftovers that I can attach to other projects like dolls or cravats or what have you. It's super fun and provides a lot of extra little bits and pieces that are wonderful to come across later for mixed media projects. And here are the final lace layers after being attached to the skirt. The back looks amazing after attaching the zipper, and here is a chance to get sassy with it. I present to you the full outfit before adding beads. I will be covering choosing the beads and sequins in part 2. Right now, this looks gorgeous. Thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.